squashed by our thoughts. Have you ever been talking to a friend and then they say something they believe is a complete fact, like there are no good guys out there, or I'll never lose weight, and you're thinking, is that really true? Well, we all have them. Those are limiting beliefs. And today we're going to talk about train your brain, choose your life, and where it goes from there. I would say that limiting beliefs and limiting thoughts are the number one thing that holds us back from growing in success. It keeps us from hitting our goals. It has us creating excuses. We can always find them in ourselves if we're like, I would do that, but blah, 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 blah. And that's when we're giving those limiting beliefs. It definitely creates a lower vibe, and these limiting beliefs really show up when we're trying to press ourselves and grow ourselves, and it's that voice that comes into our mind and reminds us that we can't do that and we shouldn't, and these are all the reasons why. And again, we've talked about how that's like the lifeguard part of our brain that's always trying to keep us safe and hold us back in another sense. So where do limiting beliefs come from? Well, they come from our past. It could be a trauma. It could not be a trauma. I feel like limiting beliefs are like, I'll go hiking and I'll go off the trail a little bit, which not hugely off the trail. But when I come back, I have these like spurs on my socks, and they're like these sticky little things. And I'm just always surprised at where did they come from? I didn't even see them there. But when I get back onto the trail, I'm covered in spurs. I feel like that's how limiting beliefs are, is that we adopt them so quickly and so easily, and it's super important just to sit down and take the spurs off one by one and remove them. So really they're beliefs. They're beliefs that we've paved in our road of our brain and that we continue to repeat. So let's talk about some common beliefs that are at the base of these limiting beliefs, because we have a lot, but if you dig deeper and deeper and deeper, we find that there's really kind of four main ones. And I would say the first one is I can't have what I want. The second is I'm not enough. The third is I'm not lovable. And the fourth is I am different. So let's talk about those. I can't have what I want. That also translates I'm not worthy. It's wrong to outshine someone else. Things like that. They're all very similar. So for example, I had a friend I was talking to recently, and she said, I can never lose weight because I'm a farmer's daughter. And it was like, that was a fact. I will never be able to be thin. I will never be able to lose weight because I'm a farmer's daughter. And that has nothing to do with a person's weight. But those are the type of beliefs we get in our minds, and then they hold us back. And mine recently that I had is and this one was completely subconscious, which a lot of them are. And that is, I can't have success and love. And so it's been great. I've enjoyed my business, been successful, and it's great to be successful when you're the definer of success. And I always think you should be the definer of your success. So I create bars that I really like and I can achieve. So I am successful and love together. And so my husband, we've had a long distance marriage for a long time, and then he moved here, and not only did he move here, but he moved here and his job shifted. So rather than having, a couple weeks together, a couple weeks not together, he was there all of the time. And it was a great opportunity for lots of limiting beliefs to come out. And one thing that I found that I had is that I can't have success and love. And so I found myself kind of self-sabotaging. I was unmotivated at work, feeling guilty about a big sale. I was feeling guilty about enjoying my husband too much, started being critical of him. That was mainly in my mind, thank goodness, but it was still not okay. And I really noticed that, wow, there is something going on here. And I was very grateful to have someone point out to me that I was being triggered and I had a limiting belief. And my limiting belief is I can't have success and love. So I was actually self-sabotaging that. Thankfully, caught it, we worked through it, and it's been really wonderful to have just better conflict resolution and more love. So it's very interesting because that was like, that comes down to I can't have what I want. And that can be a limiting belief that gets established in one form or another. The second one, I'm not enough. I feel like this is a biggie and a really common one. This was a really big one for me when I was in my destructive previous marriage of 22 years because I was constantly criticized and constantly not enough to him. And so I just adopted that I was not enough. And boy, that just really affected me from really, living, just kind of checking in with myself and living in a way that even aligned with myself. So I got really out of touch and really worked on performing rather than what was important to me and who I was, by believing that I was not enough. And that can have lots of different forms. That can also, like, you can be in an intimate relationship with a partner and be starting a fight for no apparent reason. And that can be, there's a belief there that I'm not enough. And so I can't have these good feelings for too long. So that's really a great thing to see, is like, if you're enjoying good feelings too long, are you self-sabotaging? Have you gone through a breakup that's kind of left you rattled and maybe questioning yourself some? Do you find that you're a pretty kind person that's chronically overgiving, overfunctioning, and maybe you're just plain tired and maybe a little resentful? Do you feel like you're going through the motions of life, but you're not really living your life? Well, that's what the Unravel Notebook is for. It's 61 days for you to create your life by intent and unravel your thoughts and beliefs, so you can connect with God, yourself, and others in a better, more intentional way and live brighter. So the third one is I'm not lovable. And that's a big one too. Or I'm not deserving of much love. And that can sabotage lots of different things when you have a core belief that I'm not lovable. And that can happen a lot. So the fourth one is I am different. I don't fit in. And that's interesting how that translates, because that can really create to isolation and loneliness, just having that belief. For me, I caught this on myself, another spur of limiting belief. So like I said, I've had quite a few come up the last couple of months. And so it's been great for me to be like, oh, I got to take that spur off. So this one I noticed just this last week when I went into a group that I normally love, I cherish them. And I was feeling like, a little bit unworthy and feeling different, and that I didn't fit in. And really what that happened is because I had that thought, I'm different, I don't fit in, then I had the feeling of like a low energy, like, oh, that doesn't feel so good. And then I had actions. So I basically created my own reality by having that thought that I don't fit in. And I can tell where that thought originally came from for me, because when I was in elementary school, I really didn't feel like I fit in. I went to a Catholic grade school, and I was from a Protestant family, so that really didn't help, because I was the only Protestant there in the little Catholic grade school. And then I was a gymnast, so I practiced all the time and did gymnastics, and I wasn't out socializing and having fun with the girls, so I really felt like I didn't fit in. And I was also really petite, which is hard to believe because I'm like 5'7", really little. So I probably didn't fit in on the playground when I was picked last a lot. So, I definitely saw that I kind of adopted that belief that I don't fit in. And it really wasn't until junior high that I gained some really good friends that I felt like, I fit in here. And everybody needs to feel like they belong. And a belief saying that I'm different or I don't fit in totally self-sabotaged me. By having that yesterday, they fully caught on to that and realized, okay, that's an old belief. I don't believe that. That's not true. I love others and I appreciate each other. I appreciate others. And so just kind of had to rewrite that thought and that belief. So how do limiting beliefs show up in our lives? We've talked about a few of them, but they can show up in all sorts of different ways. Worry, that's a great one. That's definitely a way to see that we're having a limiting belief. And I would say excuses, that's another one. Like, I would do this, but ... Or I would find the right guy ... if there were any out there. Things like that. Or I would give that speech, but I'm not good at speaking. So there's a lot of limiting beliefs by our excuses. Another one is like, I mentioned how much guilt I was having when I was enjoying my husband and his love, and guilt for, just an over-functioning of guilt. And that seems to be a popular one, especially as recovering kind girl, where I think there was just a lot of guilt about not performing as well. It can cause shame. It can cause depression, confusion. Like anytime I'm like, gosh, I'm confused about this, that's a trigger for me and be like, oh no, I'm actually getting clarity. I'm getting clarity moment by moment. But a lot of times, if I'm having confusion, then there's some sort of limiting belief that's hindering me from making that right decision. So, confusion is a big one. Stuckness, I think that goes with confusion. When you're confused, you feel stuck, and it's kind of this circle. So I just don't believe in stuckness. I believe that I will be given the answer, and I will know, I will have choices before me, and I'll know the right choice. So that can be anxiety. I think that can be a symptom of a limiting belief. Self-sabotaging, I think this is a fabulous one. It's like we almost recreate our beliefs by our thoughts. And so it just continues to self-sabotage us. And I see that with friends that are like, I always date the bad boys and stuff like that. And then they actually get a guy that's respectful and loving, and they don't like it. It's totally uncomfortable, and they just can't seem to function in that state because they have a limiting belief. I always attract the bad boys. So it's very interesting how we can create, and that's the lawyer in us. We talked about we've got the lifeguard part of our brain that's keeping us safe, and the lawyer that is going to reiterate our beliefs and show us evidence and just continue to solidify that dirt road to a paved road in our minds so that we believe it's completely true because it's found evidence. Just so you know, your mind will always find evidence. The lawyer will always find evidence. It's an impartial lawyer. You just give it a thought and it'll find evidence, and then you recreate that and pave that road of a belief. So that's again how that works. I think also limiting beliefs can cause poor self-esteem, and we can also be negatively projecting into our futures. So lots of different symptoms of limiting beliefs. How do we figure out our limiting beliefs, and how do we deal with them? I would say the first thing is go to God and be like, oh, I see that there's something up with this, and I need some wisdom and guidance on what this is. So I would say there's basically three things. I would say awareness first, because we really can't, it's very difficult to change if we're not even aware that we have the problem. And how do we gain awareness of our limiting beliefs? Well, there's several different ways. We can use our barf notebook that I've talked about a lot, and that's where we barf it out, sort it out, and plan it out, and we start seeing these repetitive patterns and beliefs. I also think a good friend that's willing to tell you the truth is fabulous. I love friends like that in my life that are like, Tara, I don't know if that's actually true. And I actually really appreciate that honesty because, I don't want my friends to always go with my bullshit. And I want friends to be like, there's actually another way of looking at that. And I so value that. So it could be a good friend. It could be a life coach. And that's super important. I know for me, I've become a hypnotherapist. And that's because it's easy for me to use hypnotherapy to get into a subconscious to figuring out, okay, where did this limiting belief come from? And then how can we switch it in the subconscious so that we can reprogram the brain? And I like that because it's a fast method and I appreciate that. So those are some ways of getting an awareness of our limiting beliefs. So watching our symptoms and picking one of those awareness methods. The second one is once you are aware of it, is you just have to choose your thought food. And it's not always that simple, because that's why I learned to be a hypnotherapist, because you can't always, sometimes it's hard to reprogram the thought and it's easier to go into the subconscious and reprogram it. But there is a lot we can do on the conscious level of just choosing our thought. A way we can do that is rewriting our stories. As far as some of our beliefs come from I don't fit in because when I went to this thing and, I never really connected with anyone, so I don't fit in. And so just continually rewriting our stories in order to, first of all, are they true? And then are our stories going to serve us? And that's super important. And that reminds me of one of my favorite verses that it says, think about whatever is true, pure, noble, lovely, admirable, and dwell on those things. And so honestly, I stop a lot at true, because trying to discern, okay, what is really true and what's my story about the truth can be very different, or what's my limiting belief about the truth that's affecting how I'm viewing this can be really powerful. And then dwelling on the things that are pure, lovely, admirable. So really choosing our thought food, rewriting our story, Every time you catch yourself with like, oh, that's like a limiting belief, you can change the wording back to yourself. I know some people will physically like, they'll catch themselves being like, yeah, I just can't do that. And then like, no, I actually can do that. And then they'll physically like run their hand over their head and down their neck. It's like, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And do that 7 times and just trying to reprogram those automatic limiting beliefs. And so that's super helpful. So choosing your thought food is very powerful, choosing your thoughts. And that's the cool thing is we don't have to believe our thoughts. I know a lot of times we believe our own bullshit, but we don't have to believe our thoughts. And a lot of the things we think aren't always true. So arguing with our thoughts is great. And being a little sassy with our thoughts, being like, I don't think that's actually really true. And I don't think that's actually serving you to actually think that because you're making it worse. So I literally talk to myself and will catch myself and be like, yeah, I'm going to call you out on that. So that's helpful. So again, awareness is the first thing, choosing your thought food and different ways to do that, and then meditate and repeat that. Like repeat that. Some people did I am enough and they wrote it, for a while when I was changing that belief, I had it on my mirror, I had it on my phone, I repeated it multiple times a day. I'm like, I am more than enough because God loves me. So all of those are super important ways to continue to get it in your head. Hypnotherapy is fabulous because it can go to the root and change it pretty quickly. But even with that, then I give people basically a meditation thing so that they can continue to repeat the patterning. And again, using that repeat to help reprogram the brain. Because once you've got a road in your brain, of a thought road, it takes work to break it down. And so those are some of the ways to do it. So I would say think about whatever is true, pure, noble, admirable, and dwell on those things. So train your brain and choose your life. Grow 1% a day. I believe in you. Have a great day.